Sam Fisher is back, and this time he's not alone. Tom Clancy's Splinter Cell Pandora Tomorrow is the sequel to Ubisoft's highly anticipated Tom Clancy's Splinter Cell. It was developed actually by Ubisoft Shanghai, not the Montreal studio that made the original game. The result is something that is quite similar to the original game in some ways, but then it also features an entirely brand new, never before seen and rather remarkable and amazing multiplayer mode. The single-player offering of Splinter Cell features the same sort of stealth action as the original game. It's at least as good, if not better, than a game that was considered one of the best of 2002. And meanwhile, with this multiplayer mode, you put it all together and you end up with a game that's just far superior to the original and really is like two games in one. Let's talk about the single player first, since that's what's going to be familiar to most Splinter Cell fans from the get-go. It's a lot like the first one, as mentioned, but this time it takes place in a lot of exotic locales, whereas the first game was predominantly set in, various interior environments, things like that. And even though there were a lot of really rich details in the first Splinter Cell, the settings themselves were pretty mundane. This time, though, you have missions that take place on things like speeding passenger trains going across France, jungles, so you have these daytime levels and all kinds of things like that pose a real challenge for someone like Sam Fisher, who's used to operating in the dark. Your goal, once again, in the single-player campaign is pretty much the same as before. You're trying to remain unseen the whole time, eliminate any obstacles that get in your way silently, whether or not by killing them. And really, you're trying to accomplish some very important goals, namely to get rid of this guerrilla mercenary leader who's threatening the free world. As in the first Splinter Cell, Pandora Tomorrow's single-player scenarios are completely linear. This means that sometimes they devolve into pretty frustrating trial and error. You'll just stumble upon some booby trap or get killed or something like that, then you'll reload from a save game and things are going to play out exactly as before, so you'll know what's coming up ahead. There are only 8 missions in total, but most of them are quite long. Altogether, it's going to take even a veteran Splinter Cell player about 10 hours to get through the campaign, and all in all, the campaign is at least as good, if not better, than that of the original Splinter Cell. Then there's the multiplayer mode. The multiplayer mode is completely different from the single-player storyline, but it does tie in with it. Basically, there's a point at which an organization called ShadowNet is sent off to eliminate these biological weapons that are being guarded by a mercenary corporation called Argus. Basically, ShadowNet spies, much like Sam Fisher, are the good guys, and Argus are sort of the hired guns that are supposed to take them out before they can accomplish their objectives. In gameplay terms, what this means is that you've got these 4-player matches in which ShadowNet spies and Argus mercenaries square off against each other, with ShadowNet trying to recover or eliminate these biological weapons and Argus trying to take the spies out, or at least defend the biological weapons for as long as possible. There are 8 different multiplayer maps, and they're all different from the single-player scenarios. They're designed with 4 players in mind, and they're not too big and not too small. It's not really possible as Argus to just camp out around the points of interest so that ShadowNet has to come blundering towards you or anything like that. ShadowNet can use air ducts and hidden passageways and can generally sneak around, and Argus literally has to hunt them down. The big twist to this multiplayer mode is that Argus players play the game as though it were a first-person shooter, whereas the ShadowNet players play it as though it's kind of standard Splinter Cell from a third-person perspective. So ShadowNet has more situational awareness, Argus has bigger guns. ShadowNet has some other challenges. These guys have to look out for laser tripwires and motion detectors and things of that nature, even landmines set by Argus. But they have different vision modes. They have Sam Fisher-style night vision and thermal vision to help them get through the environments. And they also have an electromagnetic rifle that can disrupt these sorts of defenses and even temporarily stun Argus mercenaries. Meanwhile, the Argus guys aren't just bullies. They have some high-tech weaponry of their own. Their rifles can switch between burst and rapid-fire modes, and they have these unique vision modes where they can see the ShadowNet spies running around more easily and also catch traces of their various traps. This is a team-oriented game, so speech communication with your partner is pretty important. What's really cool, though, is ShadowNet has these things called spy bullets with which they can mark mercenaries and intercept their speech communications. They'll also get a blip on their radar representing that character. Alternatively, if one of the ShadowNet spies runs into one of the laser tripwires or gets caught on camera or something like that, his position will temporarily be revealed to the mercenaries and they can more easily hunt them down. Multiplayer is essentially the same on both Xbox and PC. Both versions support speech via headset, but of course on the Xbox you're using the Xbox Live service, whereas on the PC you go through the Ubi.com service. Unfortunately, there are a couple of issues, at least with the launching version of the game. On Xbox Live, there's an issue with the Optimatch screen where if you hang there for too long, the game freezes up. This doesn't prevent you from actually getting into a session and playing to your heart's content, and the gameplay is nice and smooth, probably in part because it's limited to 4 players. On Ubi.com, meanwhile, there's some issues apparently with the Punkbuster anti-cheating software preventing some players from getting into matches with each other, but hopefully this is the sort of stuff that'll get smoothed out. The core gameplay itself is really just fascinatingly different and original and unique. As for other differences between the Xbox and PC versions of the game, the PC version is capable of looking better than the Xbox game. Its colors can be richer, its resolution can be higher. On the PC, you also have the option to quick save your progress at any time, which can help make some of the single-player stuff less challenging and less frustrating at the same time. So if you kind of want the steeper challenge, the Xbox version may be the way to go, and if you just want to see all the cool stuff, then on the PC that's easier. The controls are also different. On the Xbox, it plays just like the first Splinter Cell, where the left analog stick controls the rate at which you move. So if you apply it gently, then you move slowly, and if you push it forward, then you go into a full run. On the PC, the mouse wheel controls your rate of movement, and otherwise the game plays much like a first-person shooter. So there you go. Take just the single-player portion of Pandora Tomorrow, and you have a game that's at least as good, if not better, than the original Splinter Cell, which is a game that many people love. Then add a truly unique multiplayer mode, something that could easily stand alone if Ubisoft really cared to, and together you get this package that's just pretty amazing and an outstanding value and just a really impressive achievement in any number of ways. So if you're even remotely interested in a game of high-tech stealth action and sabotage and subterfuge and S-words like that, then Splinter Cell Pandora Tomorrow will easily fit the bill and will provide an experience that you're going to remember and you're going to play for a very long time.
Who do you work for? Delta?
No, staying anonymous.